Let's get to our first conversation. Nigeria has officially gazetted and transmitted the ECOWAS schedule of tariff offers for trade in goods under the African Continental Free Trade Area to the AfCFTA Secretariat. Now, this move comes ahead of the 16th Council of Ministers meeting on trade, which I think is on already in Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo, and marks a significant milestone in Nigeria's trade integration efforts. The gazetted schedule sets the foundation for implementing zero duties on 90% of tariff lines under the AfCFTA, effectively positioning Nigeria's goods and improved access and competitiveness across African markets. This step not only aligns with Nigeria's regional trade commitments, but also reinforces the country's strategic roles in shaping the continent's single market. I am speaking to Nigeria's Minister of Industry, Trade and Investments, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. She joins from DRC for this conversation this afternoon. Good afternoon, Honorable Minister. It's good to have you on the program. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon.
Yes, I think it's great to start as we've officially gazetted this transmitted the FTA Secretariat as the ECOWAS schedule on tariff orders and all of this. Please, can you make us understand the implications of this development clearly so that we take it up from there?
Thank you very much. I'd like to just demystify what it is to submit and transmit the country's tariff schedules. So what it is that it enables businesses, MSMEs, traders in goods, traders in services, to be able to access other markets. It also enables other countries to access Nigerian markets. So it means that Nigeria is open for business in the truest sense of the word. So we're the 23rd country to submit our gazetted tariff schedules to the AfCFTA Secretariat. We did that on Monday ahead of the Ministers responsible for trade meeting, which held yesterday in Kinshasa. Mr. President signed the approval a few weeks ago, and then we went through the gazetting process. And so this opens up Nigerian businesses to be able to move around the continent. It really unleashes and unlocks our export agenda under the 8-point agenda of Mr. President. Number 7 is accelerating diversification. The Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment is particularly prioritizing our non-oil exports at this time, supporting our businesses, both large and small, to trade across the continent. You will have noted the statistics that last year, Nigeria's exports to Africa was indeed really a significant jump, and in non-oil exports in general went up 24% year on year, as released by the Central Bank of Nigeria last week. So what this does, let me just press ahead, is that it ensures that businesses can scale. It means more productive jobs. It means businesses are earning export income, diversified export portfolio coming into the country for balance of trade, balance of payments also. And so it's a very, very good thing for Nigeria and for Africa, I would say.
It's a good one. I think that's pretty nice. But having ministers converge, of course, Minister of Industry, Trade and all of that, talking about trade facilitation and all of that, I'm thinking that I would love to ask you that what other challenges do we need to now start to address that are hindering the proper implementation of the AfCFTA? I used to cite the example of AGOA. I believe that we didn't get as much as we should have gotten from AGOA. And that should not happen to AfCFTA, who is just African, has to do with us as Africans. How well are we faring, and what are you ministers talking about? What sort of conversation are you having at this time to make this better than it is at the moment?
The AfCFTA agreement is the first of its kind in the world. It's for Africans by Africans. It's a unique agreement in the sense that, unlike typical trade agreements, it focuses and makes allowance for MSMEs. It makes allowance for youth-led businesses. It makes allowance for female-led businesses. So it's a unique agreement that caters to the peculiarities of the African market. Now, the African heads of state have already given this political legs. It was signed 5 years ago. In fact, it's up for the 5-year review by each country, and Nigeria announced our review in January on the 16th when we hosted the Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat. We've also inaugurated our central coordinating committee, which has everyone in government reviewing that, our national plan and our roadmap forward. So in terms of housekeeping, this was probably the final thing that we needed to put out there externally to the AFCFTA Secretariat to signal Nigeria's complete commitment to this agreement. Now, this agreement has the opportunity to help all African countries, both the big ones and the small ones, to earn something, to generate prosperity for our people, to keep the wealth within our ecosystem. The AFCFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area, is the largest free trade area in the world, 1.4 billion people, and it's a $3.4 trillion economy. And so there's a lot of opportunity. Nigeria is competitive in trade in goods. Nigeria is also very competitive in trade in services. In fact, we just finished a stakeholder engagement for the digital business mapping that we're doing to find out where our technology-driven businesses want to do business across Africa, so we can go ahead of them to solve regulatory and bureaucratic and legislative challenges. You asked about what is left to do. It's now the delivery of humans to make sure that this agreement works, particularly where we find ourselves in the current headwinds. For instance, when it comes to regulators, what businesses experience, for instance, with NAFDAC in Nigeria or with SON or with CAC, whatever, which of the ministries, departments, and agencies, they will have the counterparts in the African country that they're going to. So helping them to identify which regulator, identify which rules, and making sure there's market access. That's the role of government to enable. So when we know, for instance, where our traders in goods want to go, then we go ahead to those markets to negotiate G2G and enable them. Same thing with trade in services. And so it's really the granular work. I can speak a bit to Nigeria's trade facilitation and the steps that have been taken. One example I can cite is the National Single Window Project, which has been on for a number of years, e-customs. Mr. President inaugurated a committee last April, and that committee swung to work. It's an extensive national project, and we've already recruited the solution provider, Crimson Logic of Singapore, working with Nigerians across the board to deliver a portal that makes efficiency and transparency of our ports imperative for doing business. So that's an example of removing the regulatory challenges, and we look to do that. We also support African businesses and Nigerian businesses going to other African countries by looking for opportunities to warehouse, trade houses, making sure that we're in talks for a trade company with Afrexim Bank. So there are different things going on that enable trading across the continent. We're really bent on supporting Nigerian exporters in various sectors to be able to deliver and scale across the continent.
Indeed, that is very important to tap into this very big market. Let's talk digital trade under the AFCFTA. I know a lot of initiatives are also on around that space. And there's also a forum, a digital trade forum, Innovation Challenge. Can you also tell us about that and what's the rationale behind this?
So the digital trade forum is not actually a challenge. So what it is that we put out a survey on Monday. It's a mapping exercise. It's a survey. We're asking Nigerian tech-enabled businesses everywhere, home and abroad, where do you want to do business across Africa? So that we can target the negotiations, we can target the removal of regulatory bottlenecks, we can go to those regulators, those governments. Like here, I am in Kinshasa, speaking with my counterparts from different countries. We have bilateral meetings on the side to talk about issues of mutual interest. And so I can easily organize a trade mission, whatever it is. So the scoping with UNDP, we have a market intelligence tool that will be launched very soon that shows where Nigerian businesses trading in goods are most wanted, are most in demand, and where you would sell out, businesses can scale so they're not a hit and miss situation. They're already.
All right, then we would definitely reconnect with the Honorable Minister to continue this conversation. An interesting conversation, I must say, considering how it has to do with taking advantage of the AFCFTA, which Nigeria is strategically positioned to benefit from this? A country of about 200 million people and all. We'll still continue. Honorable Minister.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Yeah, a bit of audio challenge there. I think network issues from this end. So we weren't able to hear your submission to the end of it. But back home in Nigeria, I want to ask you if you think all players and participants in the market are ready to compete. That really will be my question. The manufacturers, service providers, are they ready to tap into this AFCFTA market? Because we've been talking about this at the time manufacturers had challenges with being competitive and all of that. You know where I'm headed, Honorable Minister. What are you thinking around that space?
Honestly, in spite of the challenges, I have absolute belief in Nigerian entrepreneurs. Phenomenal, agile, adaptable, hardworking, adventurous, tenacious. Just give them the opportunity, they're there. And so what the government's role is working on power, working on energy, working on infrastructure, working on the ports, working on the seaports, the airports, all the things that they need. Working on the regulatory challenges, we've been on that, and I've discussed what it means to champion market access, to support businesses, to have targeted interventions, to be able to help them to scale. That's all Nigerian entrepreneurs are asking for. And frankly, it's not too much to ask of their government. So we're determined to work on this. Mr. President has made it a priority. You can see that the economy, we've taken a lot of pain since 2023, and we're at an inflection point. You can see it's more stable. You can see that the FX, there's enough supply. There's, so different things are coming to fore. You saw our Fitch rating move to B. The international community is accepting and seeing, and we're gaining trust again that this economy is stabilizing and at an inflection point. And so there's a lot of interest from outside investors that are coming into Nigeria, doing their due diligence, a lot of investment announcements. Mr. President's trips since 2023 May to December, $50.8 billion in investment announcements, and we're following through to make those investments come into the economy. So we're open for business. He makes that point all the time. And ours is to close the deals, to bring that money home, and to make sure that businesses in Nigeria, which are the best advertisement for this economy, are able to grow. They're able to thrive.
Interesting one. Now, my final question for you, Minister, because I know you're very busy. You've almost started touching on the outlook, but what is your outlook and projections, of course, for trade? We've had some expectations. We're expecting some funding coming. What will be your outlook considering the beautiful figures, like you said, we've gotten from the CBN, from the NBS, but not forgetting the fact that there are still some challenges. The FRCN thing, you intervened, and there was a pending kind of overview, going to review all of that again. Considering all of these realities on ground, what is still your outlook for entire trade in Nigeria moving forward?
But just to say that, yes, regulatory challenges, what we have in Nigeria today is a listening president. He is not afraid to take decisions when he sees unintended consequences. And so when I briefed him about the stakeholders' comments regarding the FRCN, we asked for a pause to review. That committee will submit next week, and then it will go to him. And if we have to approach the National Assembly, as you know, it's a law, it's a subsisting law, and so it's not anything that can be changed without Parliament. And so this is just a matter of listening to private sector, and they're in talks with FRCN, all the stakeholders, with the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment to come to an agreed conclusion. So that's just one example of solving regulatory, legislative, bureaucratic challenges. You all know my background in ease of doing business and being able to collaborate across stakeholders. So that's part of the job, and that's what we continue to do. In terms of the economic outlook, I already talked about the increased stability, the bold reforms. You know that our fiscal reforms, the tax bill is before Parliament after robust conversations nationwide. You saw the recent reforms with NNPC, very, very well received by the international community. I mean, extremely well. I was in London and Paris last week speaking to the top investors in the world, and they were just saying, like, Nigeria, and then the next icing on the cake was the Fitch rating. And so we see our economy at an inflection point, which is why we don't have to react to all the headwind
Well, I've been speaking to Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment there. Updates around the FCFTA, expectations and outlook for the entire trade environment. Very interesting conversation, I must say. But up next on the show, we'll shift our